Welcome, Winnipeg fans all across the U.S. and Canada. You're now boarding the Winnipeg Terminal, and we've got a little bit to talk about. Of course, we have a little bit of an issue with the Jets' very short-lived offseason. Got a lot of Bombers news to talk about after preseason got started. I'll be, of course, your host, Mike D'Andrea, along with Joe Pritchard. And yeah, Joe, we've got a little bit to talk about.
Football.
Football, baby. Here we
It's
go.
back.
Preseason's here, and well, maybe week one wasn't the way we wanted to play out, but hey, it's preseason.
Yep. Well, I had football. I'm happy now.
And honestly, even those dark years with the Bombers, I would still rather that than having no football. I think you'd agree with
Agreed.
that. Yeah, we've got a pretty jam-packed show. It's going to be a good one today. So sit back, enjoy, and take off with the Winnipeg Terminal. So the whiteout was short-lived, but there's a lot to do this offseason, and it sounds like a lot of things are heating up. Just to kind of jump right into it, one of the things I've seen circulating the most across social media, across a lot of different sports outlets, including Shotgun Sports, is the speculation of what's going to happen to Nikolai Ehlers. Who are we going to trade him to if that actually does happen, of course, and what can we get in return? Joe, I'd like to get your thoughts on it.
It kind of hurts even having to think about it because the Ehlers is so much fun to watch. The problem is there doesn't seem to be a spot for him. There's not. There's one of him, and then the rest of the team likes to play another way. So he can do some fantastic things, and the numbers bear that out. But there's a lack of comfort even after all these years. So it seems like it might be appropriate before you throw a lot of money at him, which you'd have to do after this next season, to try to find somebody that fits the team style a little bit better. So anything they can get back that comes close to his value would be a win because you're not going to get that, unfortunately.
And you know who I hate to say this, it really pains me to say this, but you know who Ehlers would be a good fit for? I don't know if you know where I'm going with this or not.
No, but
He
anywhere and sending him anywhere makes me feel rotten about it.
I know, and I mean, we might lose a few listeners for this, but think about a team that is very dynamic, that is very fast paced, that lives and dies by the rush rather than by zone time. We may have met them in the first round of the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
and trust me, that absolutely kills me to say. But when you think about it, that would be such a big piece for Colorado's team. And I feel like they would be willing to pay a little bit more to get someone like that on their team since he would fit their style so well. So, on the flip side, what could we get back out of that?
Well, they do have
You,
a top six forward spot open, don't they?
hmm So, there's there's a number of guys that we can get back from Colorado, but obviously Ehlers would be a very big loss, and you really don't want to see him dealt to anybody in the Central because he can be a very electrifying player, and he could be a difference maker if he fit. He has been already, I should say, but if he fit our style a little better, or if we fit his style a little better, then I think that he would be a lot more of a playmaker, a lot more of a difference maker. But yeah, like it feels dirty to say that he'd be a good fit for Colorado, but trying to think of another team that really would have that much of a need for that style that they have. He can't go to a team like Pittsburgh, who's a retirement home at this point.
Not that that pains you to say or anything, right?
No, not at all. That is one thing. I don't know why, but being from Pittsburgh originally, you would think that I'd be a huge Penguins fan. Absolutely not the case. So, yeah, anytime that I can take digs at the Penguins, I am all 100% all in. I think the only team that I dislike more than them, there's two that I dislike more than them, and that would be Vegas and Chicago. That's another one that he
Minnesota,
would probably not.
Minnesota, yeah, Minnesota doesn't even register to you, does it?
You know, I went to a game. This was probably maybe 5 years ago now, 6 years. Um, but it was at the Excel Center. The Wild were playing the Stars, so it was like two Central Division teams that I mean, I don't even think either. It was a game in December, so like the playoff race wasn't really set in stone just yet. So it was kind of a meaningless game for me, but it was fun. I went with a buddy of mine that's a Wild fan, and it was a fun game to go to. That's one of the nice things about like this point in the playoffs, where you don't really have a horse in the race, um, but you can just enjoy good playoff hockey. It was kind of the same thing, except just take the word playoff out of it. That at that point the Wild were actually a pretty decent team, and so were the Stars. So it was actually a pretty competitive game to watch. As I finally cracked this 7 minutes
Oh,
ago.
I'm ahead. I'm one step ahead of you.
Oh, there you go. I haven't even seen that at any of the liquor stores around here.
Festival, actually. I went in
Oh,
looking for Shandy, but all they had was a 24 pack of cans for like 30-ish bucks, and I'm like, that's cheaper. I know that it's not quite as good, but I'll deal.
I love Labatt Blue. I just got my normal bush latte. There we go. Just like a lot of other Wisconsinites, I guess.
Yeah, not
I've
too many Wisconsinites I know tend to go for the Budweiser side of things, but
yeah, I've lived here now in Wisconsin anyways for 2.5 years, and I think I've fit in quite well. But I will never root for the Packers, even though they
fair.
played a game at Investors Group Field. I still can't root for them.
Yeah, that was not exactly the pinnacle of the NFL's determination to spread their wings worldwide, was it?
Yeah, I think that's kind of funny. They're going to games in Brazil and Europe, and I think that any of our viewers, any of our listeners that are from Winnipeg probably agree with this, but like of all the cities in Canada, why Winnipeg?
It was available. The Raiders were getting kicked out of Oakland at that point, right? Like they had pissed the Oakland off so much that it's like you're not even set for your preseason games. You're not even getting dates for those now. Go find somewhere else to play.
I think the only worst place probably would have been Regina, honestly, and for a number of reasons.
Yeah, and then they complained about the field like the day of, and I'm like, 2 weeks later, I'm at Banjo Bowl. I'm like, that looks pretty good. Oh, look, there's Chris Streveler running right through the Riders. The field looks really good to me now.
So happy to have him back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that was I don't know. He's like one of those guys that like he's not gonna at this point he's not gonna be a huge producer, but like sometimes relating to like Andrew McCutcheon for the Pirates, bringing him back. Sure, the Pirates still suck. It is what it is, but um, that at least brought a little bit of life to the clubhouse. Not to say that the Bombers were dead in the water because they were, obviously playing some really good football, but they make it to the dance but forget their shoes, so to speak. So maybe
Oh, is
you
that the
electric.
problem? I should
Yeah,
wa
that's the problem.
next year or this November in Vancouver, I'll have to check and make sure they're wearing the right shoes.
Hmm. Man, I want to go to that so bad. Maybe we can get the credentials, or at least I could. You already have a ticket to go. I don't. So if the Bombers make it, maybe I'll have to get those creds.
Yeah, I have to see about that.
Scooter, this one's for you, bud.
Uh-huh. You got a job.
Yep. Oh, that's gonna be if we can make it for another year, I think. I mean, we've said this many of times. Our window is about 2 years, and it's kind of perfect full circle that next year's Grey Cup is in Winnipeg too.
Right. Although the way things are going with the injuries right now, that window may be closing sooner than we want to. But
Don't say that. Don't say
let's
it.
let's hope it stays open long enough so that Kyle and Ted and Danny have plenty of time to fill in the gaps with new players that will be the next core group, and they can take it in 2 years.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a little bit more of cores and going back to Jets a little bit, though, we talked about the speculation with Nikolai Ehlers, but now what's going on with Brendan Dillon? Are we going to be in the pit of despair, dilly dilly? Like, he is testing the market now? My I guess my confusion out of this, if you will, is why didn't they even remotely do anything, even say that we're not going to extend your contract after this? They literally ghosted him all year when it came to contract negotiation. And now it's like, oh, well, he's testing the free agency market. Can you blame him?
I almost have a sense now, looking back on things, that they, especially with the deadline activities and the month prior to the deadline activities, that they were all in for this season and gave really not a whole lot of thought to what's coming next. Clearly, with Rick Bowness being at the end of his tenure, his time in the NHL being done because he's been there forever, it's going to be interesting to see how the franchise pivots now. Last off season was critical. It showed that the team was still willing to go compete with the core group they had. This offseason is critical because now you need to find a new direction. You're going to have a different head coach, whether it's Scott O'Neill or any of the available candidates out there, and that's going to determine where you go for the next 5 years. So it, you have to answer the question of what do you want the franchise to be before you can make the decisions on who's going to be on the franchise. And the sooner they figure out who their head coach is going to be, the better off they're going to be in terms of being able to act on what that coach is going to build around.
And one of our candidates already went to Toronto. That was, yeah, I was not very happy to see that on Facebook.
No, but that's its own bag. That's its own can of worms. That's
Hmm.
trouble for any coach that takes that. The upside a, is a lot harder to achieve, and the downsides are very, very obvious. Like, I mean, you're a legend if you win a cup in Toronto. Other than that, all you're doing is begging for problems.
I was gonna say, like,
You gotta believe in yourself
yeah, I mean,
to make that
hey,
call.
what happened in St. Louis? They were bottom feeders, and then all of a sudden he took them to a cup. But um, I mean, I I still think to get Toronto to a cup, oh, that's more of a challenge than getting St. Louis to a cup when they're at the bottom by the time you take over the team.
Right. You had nowhere to go but up at that point. And if they would
Yeah,
stay at the bottom, who's gonna blame you?
I wonder. So it just kind of makes me think with Toronto, like who who are they going to throw ridiculous, stupid amount of money at this year? And then, all of the Leafs fans are like, oh, this is finally the year. This is finally the year. And then they are making a run for the President's Trophy and then get bounced in the first round. Um, like, who do you think that player is going to be this year? It's like,
Did they
the
even have
definition of
room to?
insanity.
Did they even
What's
have
that?
room to add another player like that, or are they
Yeah.
just going to run it back?
Yeah. Like, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result.
Hmm.
So, in theory, if you look up insanity in the dictionary, you probably see Toronto Maple Leafs.
Among others, but yes.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
now I want to talk about other Canadian teams. I mean, what did you think of the Vancouver Edmonton series? I didn't think it was going to be as exciting as it was, but it was a pretty great series, if you ask me.
No, it was fantastic. And to me, even though Vancouver's going home, they proved they belong there.
Oh,
All
for sure.
season long, people were like, oh, this isn't going to last. This isn't going to last. This isn't sustainable. Well, it was. You go 7 games in round two. What? Well, it was 7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You go seven games in round two against a team like Edmonton. Well, you achieved something. It's not what you wanted to achieve in the end, but you got dang close.
Yeah. And now this is an interesting sort of setup that we have here. So each team that's in the postseason now, they have they have something to play for aside from the Stanley Cup, I should say. So Edmonton, if they manage to win the cup, of course they'd be bringing Lord Stanley back north of the border for the first time in 30 years. If Dallas wins, Pavelski finally gets his cup. If Florida wins, maybe they can finally get the no fans monkey off of their back, so to speak. And well, the Rangers could kind of get rid of the President's Trophy curse and also their first cup in how long? What was it? 94, I think, was the last time they won a cup.
Yeah, we were only a couple of bounces of the puck away from having a rematch between the Rangers and the Canucks, and
Hmm.
that was a hell of a series the first time around. I wouldn't have been too upset to sign up for that one again.
Yeah.
But yeah, Edmonton's Canada's last chance to fix the curse of what I call the curse of the Blue Jays. So you remember Toronto, the Blue Jays won a couple World Series, 92, 93, right? Ever
And
since
when's the
they
last time a
won,
cup was in Canada?
wasn't it 93
93.
Montreal?
Yep.
After they won that second World Series, the cup hasn't been back in Canada.
Yep. And then what? The only thing that's really come back since was the NBA championship. What was that, 2019? When the Raptors won.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
but we here in America got mad that you took our World Series away from us, so we took the Stanley Cup permanently, and even borrowed the Grey Cup for a few minutes too.
yeah, we borrowed it, and now we have the same chance of winning the Grey Cup in America as Canada has of winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, about right.
But there is a little bit of football to talk about. So, and in more than one avenue too. I know that you probably want to save that for a little bit later, but let's um, let's hear about a little bit about the Bombers, and then another avenue that we may be able to get some Bombers news as well.
Okay. Well, I was able to put my feet up on Monday, watch my football team play on my 41st birthday. Yes, I'm old. Uh, it's the earliest I remember the preseason ever being, and it happens to be my team. I'm like, duh, sold. I'll watch this one. I mean, preseason is take it or leave it for me, but this time I took it because I could.
Yeah,
Uh,
not the
we
result you wanted, but hey, we took it.
right. We got to see Chris Streveler back in blue and gold. Gotta love that, no matter how that happens.
Hmm.
Did lead a really nice early drive. against the Riders, and the Riders are playing mostly starters. So he took a group of backups that the Bombers were playing, plus a couple of starters here and there down the field, got some points. Not bad. Can't complain about that at all. Uh, Looking at the third string quarterback duel, it's pretty clear that Barrier was a little bit in and over his head. He had a lot of trouble uh, navigating the Riders' zone defenses. Like a couple times, he just found Rider defenders to hit him in stride. I mean, that's not what you want to see.
Mm-mm.
But Wilson came in and looked like a pro quarterback. Not a guy I would sit there and say, okay, he's going to take us to the cup this year, but for what it was, his first performance with this team, he looked like he knew what he was doing. Had some young receivers helping him out there too. I could get down with seeing how he develops over the next year or two, see if he might be the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I really wanted to see is, are one of these young quarterbacks capable of having a future, honestly.
Yeah, and
And it's
something
too
that we
hard to
can,
say, and it's too hard to write a guy off after the first game.
yeah,
And there will be practice roster spots, and teams do carry 3 quarterbacks. So the chances are both Wilson and Barrera will be around. Uh, but it's nice to see that one of them was able to succeed in this first shot at things.
you kind of need someone that, like, smart, can read a defense and can see the whole field. You really need that in someone that may be set up to be the next guy in 2 years, 3 years, whatever have you. So of course you can't write someone off after one game, but you also can't say they're definitely the next guy after one preseason game. But you can at least say you like or you dislike what you see so far.
Exactly.
So
And there were positives in Barrera's game, too. He definitely had the athleticism you'd like from a quarterback in the CFL. Uh, he'll have some time, hopefully, to learn the game, uh, assuming that he gets a shot to do that. But the longer you get to sit and learn the game in the CFL, the more you know what you're seeing, the more you can work with it. I find it, honestly, I find the CFL game harder on a rookie quarterback than the NFL game is, especially since you're learning some new nuances. You have one less down, wider field, so you got more room to play with, but also another defender to play with too. I mean, even we can go back beyond my lifetime when you took a Super Bowl quarterback in Vince Ferragamo, plopped him on a Canadian field, and all he could do is throw to the 12th defender. It
mhm.
does take some learning to do that, and developing quarterbacks is super important. Some teams could do it and develop quarterback after quarterback after quarterback and distribute them across the league, like say the Toronto Argonauts did about 10 years ago. They had Ricky Ray, Trevor Harris,
Mhm.
and Zach Claros at the same time. How does
Yeah,
that work out?
I think that the biggest, like, mental hurdle, for at least this is me, who, my experience playing CFL quarterback is yeah, non-existent, of course. But I think, to me, the biggest mental thing, especially if you're coming from, like, American college playing quarterback, you have 3 downs basically to get your job done, and if you don't get your job done, you have the fourth down, special teams, field goal, punt, whatever have you. But to your point before about having one less down, I think that that's got to be the biggest thing for someone who's just starting fresh. Maybe, like you said, rookie, not really any time to develop. That has to be a mindset thing. You play football a certain way for a lot of years, and then all of a sudden you change it up just a little bit. I think that could be a huge difference, and why developing a quarterback is so big in the CFL. And if you can develop one, if you can develop a quarterback, then you're essentially set. But we've seen time and time again teams that can't do that.
No, like say Ottawa.
Yep.
Hmm. Or really, most teams have trouble developing quarterbacks. It always seems like there's a team or two that has their backup leave every year or two and goes in ends up being the starter somewhere else. And then the next guy becomes a starter somewhere else. As they're following a superstar up the chain, hit that point, go somewhere else, and then all of a sudden half the league is stocked with former, in this last case, Toronto Argonauts quarterbacks.
Yeah. That is kind of funny though when you think about that. And
Right. And then some teams will keep drawing and drawing and drawing and pulling up guys from the States, giving a Canadian guy a try, and just nothing.
nothing works.
Nope.
This makes me think of the every time we talk football, I gotta mention the Steelers once. That's the case. But what talking about quarterbacks, of course, being behind a superstar with Justin Fields behind Russell Wilson, and sure, you can say Russell Wilson had some down years in Denver and everything. But the one thing that I don't really understand, and why people say that Russell Wilson is so bad, after his tenure in Denver, him on a down year, he still had 26 touchdown passes, which not too bad. And he got benched at the end of the year. And I can't remember how many picks he had, but I want to say his TD to INT ratio was more than 2-1. So like he didn't really have that bad of a year. And I asked one of my buddies this before. I was like, who is one good receiver on Denver? And he was like, Judy. And I was like, I'll ask this again. Who is one good receiver on Denver?
Yeah, you do need the right fit for what you're doing. You do need to have a receiver that's going to help you out every so often, or at the very least not hurt you. There's so many moving parts to a passing game. It's hard to assign praise or blame to just one guy, but that's what we do to quarterbacks because that's completely fair, right?
Oh yeah, but that's the wide receiver is a huge part of the quarterback success too. I mean, if Kalaros didn't have a guy like Waller, you know, if Russell Wilson didn't have a guy like Pickens this year, if Brady didn't have Gronk, sure, tight end, but nonetheless,
I mean, at
I
one
was
point
hoping
they
you'd
had it.
refute that last one.
No, I can't really. No,
But
there are some holes in the Bombers' armor this year, though. Um,
yeah,
it did look like Ian Dobson did okay from what I could see at it. I didn't really see too many problems at the left guard and the right tackle positions. The Briders did get home a few times. Did get Strevler once, but that looked like a missed call on the Bomber side. Either the running back didn't go and pass block correctly, or the line didn't get shifted right because the guy had a free shot at Strevler. He took the snap and the guy was on top of him. So that's not really on one guy when the play call doesn't work out so hot. Um,
and it's the
they
first
are
game of the preseason too, so
Yeah. So
missed calls are to be expected.
right. So there are a couple of injuries to bring up. Adam Bighill and Jamal Parker and Cameron Lawson are all in the sixth game. The hope is that Bighill and Parker are back relatively quickly in the regular season when they're eligible to come off after the first game. But from the sounds of it, Cam Lawson's going to be out long term, which means more playing time for Jake Thomas and Tanner Schmeichel. And they also do need to find who their American defensive tackle is going to be too. So that's in play. Just got to see how the team adjusts to having a couple of key pieces out before things even kick off.
Yeah. Next preseason game is
The 31st, which is a Friday. I don't even know against who because I'm working on having a family vacation for our holiday. I do like to thank Canada though for making my birthday a national holiday. I just do want to make mention though my name isn't Victoria, so maybe if you want to change the name of the date, I would appreciate that. But
I have a cousin Victoria. I've been to Victoria, BC before.
I haven't, but I'm told I need to be. I
It's
need to go.
actually really nice. I'm going back to BC again at the end of next month. It's part of a trip I'm going to Alaska, and then going to Whitehorse, basically to just stay there for the night. I've never been to Whitehorse, but apparently I've heard there's some interesting folk there. We'll say.
So is it a
Is what I've
one-horse
been
town?
told. Nice. But then yeah, we're coming down the Alaska Panhandle and then finishing up in Vancouver.
I'll have to check
So
the schedule, see who's out there.
yeah, right. I don't even
That's
remember
that's
what.
how I plan my vacations. Like, hey, you want to go this place? Okay, sure. When are the Bombers going to be there?
I was like, so this worked out perfectly. This was in 2020. This was January of 2020, so before the world shut down.
Hmm.
Um, I went to Boston for a meteorology conference, and anyways, I am looking at the dates of the conference, and the day before everyone at my school was supposed to show up, the Jets were playing at TD Garden. So I was like, okay, I have to fly here a day early. And so I stayed in this kind of like sketch hotel and was it I think it's pronounced or it's spelled like Lowell, but I think they pronounce it Low or something like that. I'm not from Massachusetts. I've only been there once in my life, so I don't know. But anyways, I stayed there and a sketchy kind of hotel or whatever. But yeah, it was a fun game and back and forth. Boston ended up winning at the very end, but this was also when the Patriots were playing the Titans in the playoffs, and the Titans ended up winning. And so after Boston potted an empty netter, I just stood up and I was like, basically getting heckled because I'm wearing this exact jersey, sitting there. So of course people are heckling me, and you know how Boston fans can be. I mean, they're a lot to deal with, we'll say. But um, after that happened, I stood up and I turned around and I just said, "Go Titans!" And yeah,
And
guy
live to
next
tell the tale.
I know a guy next to me is like, boy, oh boy, you've got a lot of cojones, we'll say. And anyways, then he invites me out after the game. And I was like, well, I'm either going to get invited out for some beers or I'm going to get stabbed or something. But he invited me out for some beers. We went to this place called Banners. It's like right outside of TD Garden. And it was like mom's road trip and for the Bruins, and then like how the mom trips always end up with a home game or whatever. So David Pasternak was at this place with his mom, with his family, and so it was like can't really just go say, "Hey, what's up?" There's like security or whatever around, but it's kind of cool. I got to see David Pasternak at this bar.
That seems like what would happen to me in a CFL story. Because that's the kind of stuff that would always happen.
See, this is why, when it comes to the Winnipeg Terminal, I kind of cover the Jets, you kind of cover the Bombers a little more just because these are the kind of stories that we have.
Oh yeah, yeah. All sorts of just off the wall things that happen when you go to a Grey Cup or a Banjo Bowl.
Hmm.
Always worth your time. There's
Oh,
always
for sure.
something that stands out as like, okay, I wouldn't have had that happen at home.
Yeah. So, to kind of land this episode for today, I do want to have you touch on something, another avenue of some Bombers news too, for those that don't get enough on the Winnipeg Terminal.
Yeah, so clearly I'm a fan of the CFL in a lot of ways.
Never would have
Most
guessed.
mostly the positive ways. I mean, I'm wearing the right colors, right? Um, so I've been doing a CFL related podcast that's just league wide uh, with a guy that grew up in New Hampshire, ended up in LA, and now is in Budapest because he had been back and forth between LA and Budapest for a while. Uh, we are we just put the show Rouge, White, and Blue on the Shotgun Sports Network, so you now can see our pretty faces later tonight, or whenever you get your video podcasts from Shotgun. Or you can still listen to us on the podcast feed, any which way you get your podcast, because I think we've got them in like 15 different places at this point. We've been doing it since 2015, so we've had some practice.
Yeah, for sure. So it was it's I've given it quite a few listens, and guys do a great job too. So kind of excited to see where this season goes for you guys too. I always love listening.
Good, good. Uh, More is more. Seems like last week's launch on Shotgun was a roaring success. We got better numbers than we're used to having, so even better.
Yeah, for sure. So that's the nice thing about Shotgun is I feel like every week we're growing Winnipeg Terminal, we're growing Rouge, White, and Blue. We're growing the Elks herd. Uh,
Yep.
sorry,
I
the Elks.
was yeah. No, I was able to, after we wrapped up and I was making the video, takes forever to upload, and I'm sitting there, oh, let me go check out the Elks call, and lo and behold, the last segment is sponsored by Rouge, White, and Blue. It's like, I don't remember paying for that. I'm good with that.
Some free advertising, huh?
I'll take it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Hey,
tonight or whenever you catch up, we're gonna be talking about the preseason futures and making some predictions on those. So come join us.
I think I'm going to have to join too. Anything else you wanted to add to this particular episode of the Winnipeg Terminal? I think I've exhausted all of my fuel.
I think so too. I think we're going to be waiting and seeing on the Jets which direction their next couple of years are going to go, and we'll know probably by July 1st is my guess. But until then, we're just kind of sitting here going, which way
Yep.
are they going?
We'll see who walks and who doesn't.
Who walks, who doesn't, and what type of team they're going to try to bring back next year. Because who
Yep.
walks and who doesn't is going to depend on who the coach is. We don't know who the coach is, so it's hard to say.
A lot of what ifs. This is almost reminiscent of last off season.
Mm-hmm. Just in a different way. Last offseason, it could have been, do we punt this whole thing and start fresh? And now it's okay. We've got a base of things, but like some people can go. Which ones do we keep based off of what we're going to try to be next year?
Mm-hmm. A lot of question marks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, this is the Winnipeg Terminal. We are clear for landing. For the dub, go Jets, go.